My life-changing experience, or testimony. I grew up in a Christian home in Davenport, Florida, after my birth in Kissimmee, Florida, on November 11th, 1993. I've always been attending a Southern Baptist church all of my life, but I didn't personally know God until I was 8. Before that, I knew about God, but I didn't know Him personally. I started attending First Baptist of Kissimmee when I was a baby, and then a few years later, I started going to Four Corners Baptist Church a few years later, and people still tell me to this day at that church that they remember when I was in a stroller. As I grew up, people fell in love with me and found me very easy to get along with. Even though I ate a lot more as a kid, compared to the present, I still thought people were way more important. I loved listening to the songs and singing along as well, but I always had a hard time staying awake during the sermon. The bad thing is that I had to run the PowerPoint for over 100 people, and the pastor used visuals for his sermons. The audio guy would notice that I was dozing off during the sermons, and he would have to keep reminding me when to change the slides. My favorite part about going to church was seeing Amparo and Deanna, my two closest friends as a child and today, and of course eating 2 Krispy Kreme donuts a week. Obviously, I hardly eat donuts anymore, but they are enjoyable to eat rarely. It's crazy how young of an age that I got asked to run the PowerPoint at. I believe that I started running the PowerPoint when I was 5, if I am right. A few years later, my church decided that it wasn't a good idea anymore to let kids run the PowerPoint, so I never did it again. Even as a kid, I have always gotten along extremely well with senior citizens. My family and I were extremely involved with Four Corners Baptist Church, so we attended every event. There was one event I remember in particular when my church had a luncheon at one of our church members' homes, and we ate barbecue food. The pool was open, and I spent most of the time with elderly people. As they got older and older, I continued to rely on people more and food to make me feel better in life. But nothing was working. I was like your ordinary worldly person, relying on worldly pleasures to please myself, and not understanding how important God was in my life. I would keep going to church every Sunday, but the only thing I ever got out of church was the donuts and spending time with Amparo and Deanna. When I was 8, which was sadly around the time that I started watching Harry Potter, God knew that it was time to make His move. We had a communion at church one day, and I was in children's church during this time. Amparo and Deanna knew this whole time that I wasn't saved, but I didn't. When the Lord's Supper was brought to children's church, I was very confused. The first thing that came to my mind was, as usual, free food, but it wasn't. The Lord's Supper is something that Christians take to remember what Jesus Christ did on the cross 2,000 years ago for us all. When I went to reach for a cracker on one of the trays that was for the saved people, Amparo, who was next to me, told me no. She had always been so close to me that I obviously listened to her immediately. It was during the summer of 2001 when God got to me, and I knew that I had been living my life for the wrong reason. Four Corners Baptist Church was doing VBS, and the pastor was nice enough to offer to drop by my house to pick me up for VBS. Then my mom immediately put me into VBS. Once again, I started getting extremely concerned about the free food. One of the first things that I saw was a nacho stand in my mouth. Started to drool for some crunchy nachos with some hot, cheesy sauce. After hearing the Word of God every day in a different way than I was used to hearing in church that week, I went to my pastor to ask him how I could be saved. He answered my question, but he didn't help lead me to Christ, as I hoped that he would. That night, I went to my mom and I asked her instead how I could be saved. She explained the whole process to me and we prayed together. 4 years later, God called me to be a pastor, and when I was 18 or 19, I completely gave up watching and reading Harry Potter. Now I am 20, and I am a leader for Christ instead of some dumb kid who only knew the bare minimum about Christ. Will you now choose to follow Christ? If so, then all you have to do is pray the following. A. Admit to God that you are a sinner. B. Believe that Jesus is the Son of God. And C. Confess your faith in Jesus so that you can live forevermore.